You have a child, they're anxious, they're unsure, they're apprehensive. Do they or do they not want to participate in this extracurricular activity that you think is going to change their life and enrich them so much? You're the coach. You're trying to juggle the relationship between you and the parent and the child, and it's all very complicated. Today, we answer your questions. What you do when your child doesn't want to play sport, or when you're the coach and the parents are pushing the kids too hard. Hello, welcome to the Happy Families podcast, real parenting solutions every day on Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We are Justin and Kylie Coulson. Every Tuesday, Kylie, we answer your tricky questions. Family stuff, relationship stuff, kids stuff, well-being, screens, discipline, you name it. If you would like to submit a question, send us an email, podcasts@happyfamilies.com.au, or jump onto the website, scroll down to the podcast section and use our super simple system, happyfamilies.com.au. Just click the record button and start talking, like this one from our anonymous listener who asks,
I have a question about talking to kids in a coaching situation, as I've just started coaching kids aged 9 to 13. I understand I'm often the voice in my kid's head. As a person with anxiety who hates experiencing it, I try to encourage my kids to step beyond their fears and worries and to make their world a bigger place, to not restrict themselves by fear. Sometimes this works, sometimes they need more time. So when you have a nervous kid in a team and you hear parents discouraging or even insulting their kids by saying they are too afraid, they will just stand there, what do? I'm not their parent. It's not my kid. I'm not here to judge. Sometimes we need a person who offers an alternative voice, one that says, hey, maybe you can try this new thing. What's the best way to do this, especially if the parent is right there without overstepping? Thanks.
Tricky relationships, Kylie, tricky situations.
We've got 4 tips for coaches in this situation.
And then a handful of tips for parents, because let's face it, sometimes we do as parents want to make it all about us when it's all about the kids. Let's kick off.
Number 1, if you're the coach, best piece of advice I can give you, minimize parents' involvement.
You said that so much more politely than I was going to say it. I was going to say kick the parents out.
I remember when our kids first started swimming lessons, we actually were stuck in a room behind the glass window.
Yeah. In fact, several of the places where our kids have had swimming lessons over the years have adopted the same strategy. The parents don't go into the pool space.
We actually become a distraction to our children when we're paying for them to have this experience. They need one voice to listen to, one person they can look to for guidance, direction, and we just add a whole heap of noise that confuses them.
Yeah, coaches, keep the parents out. This is between you and the kids now. I think, and parents, remember, it's your child's experience. Like, your child signed up for it. Your child wants to play the sport. Your child wants to be with their friends. It's their experience, so let them have that experience. That's theirs.
Number 2 for coaches, get curious.
Yeah.
So important you get to know the kids, and that's not something that you can just do on the field. You really actually have to take a little bit of extra time to spend with them, to know how they tick, to know what excites them, to know how they actually work.
Something that we didn't say in listening to that message is just, and we're keeping the person's name anonymous, but what a great thing to be volunteering your time, to be making a contribution, to be looking at young lives and focusing on building them up and enriching them and enlarging them. I just think this is such a good thing to be doing. And as parents, again, our job really should be, so long as we have the confidence that the coach is a safe person, and usually most states have all sorts of legislative things that people need to jump through, hoops to jump through so that you can become somebody who works with children. These people are giving up their time and their energy and their effort and their resources to help the kids. I think it's great. And what I also would say is most coaches will be curious. They'll be curious about the kids. And if you're a coach with a child who is anxious, apprehensive, worried, ambivalent, the best thing you can do is say, hey, tell me how you're feeling about that. What's going on? Like, have the conversation and see what insights they give you.
I am currently volunteering in a youth group at our church.
Yeah, you look after all the kids, all the girls from 12 to 18?
Yeah, and I've taken the opportunity this year to spend some time with their families and get to have conversations with parents. And I've asked them, what is the one thing that would make the biggest difference for your child this year in feeling loved and appreciated? You know what they say?
Tell me.
Literally, just acknowledging their child by name.
Mm.
Too often, especially in a team situation, we talk to the team.
That's so profound. It's so ridiculously simple. It shouldn't need to be said.
Yes.
And yet it's so powerful because when people know that you know their name and that you're acknowledging them, they feel like they belong.
And just that individual acknowledgement, hey, Lily, it's so great to see you here today. Thanks for joining us, or whatever, makes all the difference because all of a sudden those kids feel seen.
Yeah, and of course, because we're talking about this issue of children feeling anxious and parents overstepping, the willingness on the part of a coach to step in, lean in, ask questions, get curious, rather than being judgmental. I just think there's so much power in that. It's so valuable.
Number 3.
Yeah.
So you've got a wonderful opportunity to invite or challenge kids to try something different, to experiment on different ways that they might approach things.
Yeah, empower them, especially if the parents are out of the picture a little bit. You've got the opportunity to say, well, let's rewrite the script. Just because that's how you feel when you've got that audience, or that's what you've told your parents, what would it look like if? Do you reckon we could try that? Reframing the anxiety is so powerful. In fact, Emma McKeon was on the podcast recently. Emma is Australia's most decorated Olympian in history, and she was having a chat with me about this very thing. Here's what she said.
I definitely still got nervous when I was young, and that's just because I cared about what I was about to do and didn't know what I might be about to do. And so the nerves are actually the same, whether I was at a state level meet or through to when I eventually was at an Olympic. So I think it's reframing it in your head and seeing the nerves as a good thing. The nerves are like little bouts of energy that you can use in your race, and nerves are showing you that you care. Nerves are showing you that you're doing something brave and worthwhile. And I think it's reframing it in more of a positive way.
Kylie, great advice. So simple to reframe that. After the break, we'll talk about what parents can do if their kids are anxious about participating in sport. Okay, you've got the coach who wants your kids to do well. You want to do well, but your children are feeling nervous, apprehensive, worried. What are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to do this? Kylie and I have got 4 quick things to run through if you're the parent to help you to navigate this tricky situation. First one.
In all my time working in childcare, the number one advice that I would give to parents when their children were distressed as they left was to just go. The longer they stayed involved in the situation, the longer the child was distressed for. 9 times out of 10, that parent walked out the door. I gave those kids a gentle hug, and within minutes, they were settled and ready to get on with the day. And that's the same with our kids in these situations. Get out of the way.
I feel like there's some repetition here. We said that in relation to coaches, but let me extend this by just a smidge. What you've got to do as a parent is trust. Now, my definition of trust is that you believe that the other person is going to act in your best interests, or in this case, in your child's best interest. If you can trust the coach that they really are there with great intentions, great motives, and they want to help your child, then trust the coach. Remember that it's not about you, and leave them to work it out. I think that's where the value is in this conversation, this question.
Number 2 might be a bit provocative for the anxious parent.
Yeah, it is.
You got to love the hills.
So I've shared this so many times on the podcast and in my resilience seminars when I travel around the country and give these workshops and presentations in schools. As a cyclist, what I discovered when I was competing many years ago was that I could only become the strong cyclist I wanted to be by riding uphill, not by riding downhill. Everyone likes the downhills. They're fun, they're fast, they're free, they're just delightful, and you smile all the way down. Uphill, you're gritting your teeth. It's hard. There's no joy in it at all, really. But when you teach your kids to love the hills, you teach them to develop character, determination, persistence, and an attitude that when I do hard things, I reap the rewards. The rewards being you get to the top and feel the sense of accomplishment, and
then you get to go downhill.
You get to go downhill, and you get to enjoy the view. That's what I was going to say. Just the scenery when you get to the top of those 30-minute climbs is amazing. Quick side note, very embarrassing. Several years ago, I took my bicycle with me when I went on a writing retreat. I went to my mentor's home in the Rocky Mountains in Utah in the USA and stayed there for 2 weeks while I wrote 10 things every parent needs to know. But each morning before I wrote, I'd jump on the bike and I'd ride to the top of this thing called the Alpine Pass. The first day I did it, it took me about an hour and 22 minutes. And I worked so hard to get to the top of that hill. Kylie, I checked Strava when I got back to the office to see what the fastest time up that climb was. The tour of Utah had been on a couple of weeks earlier. So all the professionals had gone through there. The fastest time was like 37 minutes. And I nearly had a heart attack doing it in an hour and 20 or something. It was just brutal. Anyway, teach the kids that they've got to love the hills. Stay out of the way. It's not about you. 2 more quick ones.
Number 3, don't minimize what your child's feeling.
Yeah. You'll be right. No. That's not going to work. Just get out there and give it a crack. It's not hard to say to them, I know this is scary for you, or this feels tough for you, doesn't it? Or this worries you. Give them that little rub on the back, that little pat right there so that you can stimulate their vagal tone and help them feel a bit better about life. And then step into number 4, which is probably the most important thing that I talk about in all of the parenting stuff that I talk about.
The 3 E's. We're going to explore with them, we're going to explain, and we're going to empower.
Yeah, explore is getting curious and understanding where they're coming from. Explaining is stepping out for them, why there's value in this enriching activity. And empowering goes back to what we talked about with the coach. Say to them, what would it be like to experiment? What would it look like if you were going to be successful? What things would you do? How do you want to proceed from here? It's about moving them through it with confidence and positivity. Love the question. Really grateful for it. And a little bit out of the ordinary, not what we normally answer, but we've literally said, ask us anything. Send us your emails, podcasts@happyfamilies.com.au, or go to happyfamilies.com.au to ask whatever tricky question you'd like. We're literally happy to answer anything that's on your mind about, well, pretty much anything that we can squeeze into the pod. happyfamilies.com.au, click the record button, start talking. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. More information and more resources to make your family happier are available at happyfamilies.com.au.